Hello, peace seekers. This is Saniqua White dropping in to give you a piece of my mind that will hopefully give you some peace of mind. Today, I want to talk to you about your mind and your family. And when I talk about this, what I'm saying is your family and the way it functions has an effect on your mental state. And that could be positive, that could be negative. And what I really want to focus on is if you find yourself in a family system, or at least parts of your family system, that is negative, and how it affects your mind and how you might want to deal with that and how to cope with that. So if your family is positive for the majority, that is fantastic. You are highly blessed because not everybody has that situation. So cherish that. And I would also ask you to save that and share that with someone who may not have it. If you should find yourself on the other side where parts or the majority of your family system is negative, here are some things that I want you to consider. Putting in boundaries. And I know that boundaries is being talked about all over the place, but what I want you to consider is that you are not setting a boundary with a family member to make them change. You hope that they might, but that's not your point, because you can't control what someone else does any more than they should be able to control what you're doing. You set boundaries to control the effects that their behavior has on you. If your cousins like to turn backflips in the street in the middle of traffic and that just sends you into panic, well, your boundary is you don't go on the street or go get in the car with them when you know that they're going to go and get and turn backflips in the street in the middle of traffic. Your boundary is that you just don't get in the car. Let them say whatever they want to say about you being a coward, about you being a punk, about you, whatever they want to call you. Let them call you whatever they want, but your boundary is I'm not going. Think of it that way. So if you don't like people cursing at you, then when they start cursing, you either ask them not to, or if your boundary is already in place, remember that you can remind them of the boundary. And I'm going to talk about how you set a boundary in just a second, but you can remind them of the boundary and then you implement the consequences. So let's go ahead and jump into that. Like, how do you set a boundary, especially with family members, so that you can protect your mind and your mental space from your family? So first thing is you have to decide what it is that you do or don't want to happen in your space when it comes to your family. So let's just take the cursing thing. If you don't like cursing and all of that loud and all of that obnoxiousness that happens in some families, then you let them know, hey guys, the cursing and the noise and all of this, it really gets to me and it causes me anxiety or whatever the issue is for you. So, hey, can we cut down on that? But you also give them another choice. You give them words or things that they can do. Can y'all go outside? I'm not telling you you can't curse and you can't whatever. Can you go outside when y'all start all of that? Or can you use different words? I don't want you to drop an F-bomb, but you can say friggin'. I'm fine with that. Give them something that they can do. If you're trying to remove something from their vocabulary or remove something from their behavior, give them an addition. Give them something that you are okay with. Okay? Now, once you know what it is that you want to do, you set up the boundary. You tell them, okay, if you guys started that cussing and obnoxiousness and loudness, this is what is going to happen. If you're at my house, I will ask you all to leave. I'll give you a warning and let you know, hey, remember the boundary is, I can't deal with all of that. If they continue, then the consequence is that you will ask them all to leave. Okay? So in this instance, you don't have to think of yourself as putting them out of your house. They put themselves out because they crossed the boundary that they knew was set. You're just implementing the consequence. Okay? So if you happen to be at their home, then you will say, hey, y'all, I can't handle all of that. If they continue because you're at their home, then your consequence might be that you will leave. They might be perfectly fine with that. You might be sad that you have to leave, but it preserves your mental state and your emotional state. You don't have to deal with all of the loud cursing, obnoxiousness, and get yourself in a place of anxiety. So whatever your boundary is, you set that boundary and you let them know what it is. Your boundary isn't set if you haven't told them what it is and what the consequence is to it. Now the boundary is in place. So if and when, now family will test you. So if and when they cross the boundary, you must implement the consequence. You must ask them to leave your home, or you must leave their home. Whatever the consequence is that you have set up, it must be implemented. Okay? Then you always have the right to go back and reevaluate. Did that work the way you wanted it to? If it did, then good, you're set. If it didn't, then make some changes. Have the conversation with the family again to let them know you've adjusted what your boundary is, and this is what it is, and this is what will happen if and when it's crossed. Always set the boundary. Let your family know what the boundary is and actually implement it. If you do not implement the boundary, you will lose face with your family because they will not believe that you will do anything else if you say something and then you don't hold to it. So think about it in this way. Do not set a boundary or a consequence, rather. Do not set a consequence that you yourself will not enforce. So you need to be able to enforce the consequence if you set it when it goes with the boundary. If it's going to be too uncomfortable for you to do that particular consequence, don't do that one. Do something else. Do something that you can do because you don't want to look like to your family that you don't keep your word. So a boundary doesn't mean anything to them if you don't keep your word. If there's actually no consequence to that boundary, then you can expect for that boundary to be crossed every time. Okay, so I hope that this is helpful in you keeping your mental peace intact when it comes to your family. Learn how to set boundaries with them. Even though it might be tough, you might get called all kinds of names and all sorts of things might happen. But if you want to maintain your mental peace when it comes to your family, especially if they're negative, then you have to do this. I hope this video was helpful. If it was, give it a thumbs up. Remember to subscribe. If you'd like to comment, I'd love to hear from you. I'll be back soon, but until then, be proactive about your mental health. Be well, and God bless.